Hello, and welcome to the Gonzales Mitchell Show. I'm Clay Mitchell.
And I'm Patrick Gonzales.
And today, Patrick and I have a special guest. His name is James Yoon. James is a student at Johns Hopkins University and is a partner with Hopstone Capital. James, welcome to Gonzales Mitchell Show.
Thank you, thank you, Clay. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here.
Hey,
Well, thank
thank
you
you
for
for
having
joining us. Now, what is, for those that don't know, and I didn't know until a year ago, what is Hopstone Capital and what is your role in that?
Yeah, so I'm partner at Hopstone Capital, where we use the Hopkins Endowment Fund to provide non-dilutive funding to Hopkins affiliated startups. So it's a quite new organization, been around for 2 to 3 years, and thankfully I've been around for the most of the part. And for that reason, I was able to be part of in the last 2 years 17 startups that we were able to fund, and most of them are still doing extremely well. Some raising more than close to $1 million. Some are getting to the next stage of their startup. And what we're trying to do is really help out the Hopkins ecosystem that hasn't been really prevalent in regards to the startups and entrepreneurial spirit. And most startups die in the MVP stage. MVP meaning minimal viable product. So our goal is to provide funding, provide them validation, provide them help, and then submerge them into our ecosystem to help them out as much as possible. So we get the next Facebook from Hopkins.
I've been a participant, I guess it is, as a judge and a mentor in the Hop Start program for, I guess, 4 years or so. And the ingenious ideas and products that they come up with just blow my mind. You said you've been involved with 17, funding 17 different projects. Can you elaborate on any or all of those?
Yeah. So out of 17, obviously the biggest portion is in the medical space, as we're at Johns Hopkins, and some of them are founded from the doctors at Johns Hopkins. Some are founded by PhD candidates. Some are founded by graduate students at Hopkins, and we have many of them are doing well, but the problem is with a lot of medical space is that we don't know how well they do until they go through many of the regulatory process that simply often soaks money away in the beginning. And our goal is to help them out in the early stage so they don't give up 50-70% of their equity earlier on. And many of them are not gimmicky startups. They're really trying to save lives. And we have one that are trying to fix the spine system. We have some that are trying to use AI to evaluate, surgery, in the OR room. So we have many outside of the medical space. We have a couple in the ed tech space. We have some that are trying to fix the water pipes across the United States. So these are dire problems that we have in this country that they're really trying to focus on, and we are thankful to be usually the first capital that they actually receive in order to continue uh, expanding.
If you could say or describe without divulging any proprietary information, when you say fixed pipes throughout the United States, what exactly does this do?
Yeah. Well, this startup is called Aquapitas, and I just met with the founder a couple weeks ago, actually, when he came back to Hopkins. So he just graduated about a year ago, and all he's trying to do is a small ball that has both camera and the audio system in order to flow and then insert into pipes. And the reality is there are small to big pipes that have a lot of the leakage, and
Mhm.
they do not realize until much later on after losing water after water for months. So their entire goal is to use audio and camera to flow through the pipes and actually find a leakage earlier on right away. And I think that's a very interesting project. That's an interesting startup. We have many more that are similar to like that.
From what
Patrick,
I
it's kind of like that
understand,
old movie.
that kind
It's
from what I
like that old
understand,
movie,
James,
Fantastic Voyage. Remember that? They shrunk those people down. They inject it. I'm
Exactly.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. Go ahead, Patrick. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, from what I understand, James, that kind of technology is needed right now in Baltimore. I mean, from what I read in the paper and stuff. So that's wonderful.
Yeah. And for me personally, I always spend a lot of time in relation to the biggest problems in America that haven't been really solved by the government, because at the end of the day, it's a bureaucratic system, and there's so much problem that that goes little from the water leakage to, I think, the student debt to national debt crisis, that I spend all day every day talking with like-minded students like myself. And how do we use, what can we do, as a small startup that big companies cannot do, that big government cannot do, and actually trying to find a way. Because I think that with the rise of technology that we have, from AI to blockchain, that we can actually finally solve these problems that haven't been solvable for centuries.
Oh, absolutely. And James, in the 236 years of history of this country, government has never solved any problem. Um, Government did not create the airplane. Government did not create it. It is up to people like you and your organization to find those entrepreneurs, those with the grit and the ambition and determination. And again, I just think this is wonderful. I've owned my own business for 40 years ago. There's not a doubt in my mind. If you had been around then, it would have been a great assist to me. And the one thing, and I'll end with this, that I love about your program is you get in real early, and that's the important to me. That's an important component.
Yeah, and they call it the valley of death, right? That is when the early stage startups fail because most of the reason is capital, where you run out of money. That's the end of your startup. That's end of, sometimes not even it's hard to even call it a startup. It's a project, sometimes a class project that has continued on. And we want to fill that gap and actually validating, helping them out, both in capital and with resources outside of capital too.
Now, since I was involved with Hop Start, when I first became involved, I thought it was going to be just like Shark Tank, where people come in and they pitch these ideas. But these are projects where the groups of students actually have patents and patents pending and intellectual property. It's not just you put on a sketch pad for some undergrad project and hand it in. This is really well thought out. They have advisors, and I was really shocked, but I was heartened that this is real stuff. These solve real problems with real inventions. Next question: if you could talk to us older guys when you talk about the medical devices, because Patrick and I will need medical devices coming up here pretty soon.
I need them
What
now.
some of the can you describe some of the projects that you funded that seem to have promise?
We have many to choose from. One is, I think, Curve Ashore, which we were able to fund earlier on, and now they're getting lots of funding where they're trying to, fix the spine system in a non-invasive manner. We have another one that is trying to fix, Air, which is trying to, working with sleep apnea by using, another, non-invasive product, as well as Semaphore, which they use AI to actually detect all the surgery inside OR rooms in order to change the supply system, as well as actually help the surgeons improve, because there's nothing more important for saving lives than actually having surgeons improve too. So those three especially. We had Founders Night a couple months ago, I believe in September, and I was
Mhm.
able to host it. And when we were hosting it, all three founders of them also came. We had many more, who came, and especially because we're at Johns Hopkins, we get such high quality med tech, or in the medical space, biotech products and startups that are really promising. And we're just finalizing our new funding sprint. And in that batch too, we had almost record number of startups apply for funding, and we're just finalizing our funding decisions. And I'm looking at it, and I'm very And I love it. And I love it because so many startups are promising. And I think many of them are going to actually fix the problems that this country has.
If you need a test subject for the sleep apnea project, I will volunteer because I'm sick of wearing that mask. If they could do something with that, that'd be awesome. What, James, do you see as the next sort of a trajectory that that science and medicine, especially, is going to take? You mentioned AI, but what does it look like, say, in 5 years? Some things that could become a reality in the marketplace.
Yeah, and I spend all day, every day, thinking and talking with folks about really and understanding the flow of the world, because to me, everything happens for a reason. Where the top startups that succeed and the technologies that change don't. It's not just because their technology is the best or their business is the best, that they're at the right time at the right place with the right people. And when I'm talking about a couple flow of the world, that I believe is heavy decentralization, that are now more available because of the rise in technology like blockchain and AI. And another thing is, I think there's a shift away from kind of the bureaucracy and efficiency when you're looking as a country or in the world too. That I think there's a reason why, for example, like there's a big rise in Bitcoin. It's not just because of Bitcoin itself, that there is, I think, underlining psychological and social aspect that is rising when we're trying to understand the flow of the world. So, when we say that in the medical space too, I think, healthcare data where people can kind of own their data and then flow through something like blockchain, or, making that more efficient, because people who have used medical apps, people who have been into hospitals know how inefficient and kind of bureaucratic it is. And I think there's a new flow in the industry, just like most industries in the world, that are flowing through the direction that I just talked about. And I think many startups are already trying to take advantage of that.
I've read over your bio. You're also involved in other aspects of what you're doing to apply to government bureaucracies and business bureaucracies. What is that all about? What are you doing on that end?
Well, simply, I continue to analyze and talk and discuss with all different students who are like-minded like myself in all different colleges, and really trying to understand where the world is heading, and how it doesn't have to be us, but how someone can take advantage of it to actually make problems, and attack the problems that currently exist. And I always like to set myself that I always want to take risks, and I think there's no better time to do it than right now. And we'll see where it goes. But I'm a guy that is always trying to find a way to have my own project that can be scaled quickly and upward, because I just have too much energy, and I'm always trying to find a way to use that energy and concentrate it into a place. And we'll see where it goes. But I hope to just keep working hard and see how it goes.
I was struck when obviously Elon Musk, he's a genius. He's in all this stuff. And one of the ideas that he had was he was going to apply all this technology to try and make government more efficient. Uh, I I think that state government as well as the federal government can be made more efficient. Talk to me about what exactly is this AI and this technology model? What can it do to help make government and large businesses more efficient? I just don't have my arms around what they're talking about.
Um, I can't really speak for Elon. He's much smarter than the guy that I am, but I can speak for myself and what I think. Which,
Yeah.
when you look at kind of bureaucracy, what the main problem often is the middleman after middleman that exists again and again. And if you look at something like Amazon, or Robinhood, which is stock app, where they have actually now minimized or gotten rid of the middleman that has ever existed, where for stockbrokers have forever existed in the finance system, and they have profited heavily, or you have to call a stockbroker in order to purchase the stock of a company that you want. Now anybody can simply go on the app, on your phone and on the palm of your hands can simply click Google that you want to buy, Amazon stock you want to buy, and click, and that's it. Similar with Amazon, we're trying to get rid of the middleman. And I think that is a model that can be utilized in most other industries that haven't been disrupted at all. Where I see, I just like Elon, I think national debt crisis is a huge issue that can backfire to America for the longest time. And when you look at that and how to see where we spend 1.5 plus trillion dollars in student debt, where it's federalized because most 90 plus percentage come from federal loans. How can I think it could be more privatized and actually have a win-win direction. But I'm also skeptical of the big players, where it's the big banks to other big institutions that have dominated industries. And I think I always try to, my mindset I want to always have is what can a small startup do that all these big players can't? And it's trying out new ideas, it's creating new markets, which I always focus on creation of new markets, because too many startups that I see are trying to make incremental small changes in a heavily saturated market, which I don't see a point of that. So really focusing on that, and I think government can be more efficient that way. We'll see how Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and the new administration does, as they want to fix a lot of things.
Yeah.
But I know many have tried, and it's not an easy thing to change.
Well, I think that's because they tried, but they had baby boomer generation like Patrick and I, where we look at this thing, and it's just it's a marvel, because fax machines to me are still magic. When Patrick and I were growing up, we first went to the moon, and the only thing I remember is we got Tang out of the deal. If you know what Tang is. But I look at this, it's there's no wires. You can talk to anybody in the world. It's like a small computer in your hand. And with young people like you looking into these problems and solving problems and attacking it, from a micro and a macro level, I, I can speak for Patrick. We're excited about the future, because there are lots of problems that we've left behind for you all to solve, and I, I look forward to it.
Yeah.
Talking to people like you and the Hopstart people, I'm encouraged. I'm not discouraged about the
Yeah.
future.
And adding on to that, all the innovation, I think many of them will and are coming from Johns Hopkins, which I'm proud to be part of. I always say, I'm a proud member of Johns Hopkins, and I take extreme pride of it. I take pride in, being, I also play football at Johns Hopkins, and I take a great pride in being part of
Yeah,
Johns Hopkins football. And I take great pride in the ecosystem we have built, where, you and Len Foxwell, who's my professor, my favorite professor, who leads the Hopstar Challenge, is doing a great work, from also to Pava Center, which is the entrepreneurship center at Hopkins. We have many more that is now creating this innovation, and I take an extreme pride in helping create it, helping sustain it, and being part of all these main organizations here at Hopkins.
James, you're on the football team. You guys are having a great season, aren't you?
Yeah, we're having a great season. We're having our final regular season game tomorrow against McDaniel College, and then we get to the most fun part of playoff time.
The playoff.
well,
Now, I have a friend whose son is the star quarterback of Susquehanna University. Now, they're in the Landmark Conference, so they're different. They're different conference, but I have a feeling there is a possibility that Susquehanna and Johns Hopkins are going to butt heads, perhaps in the playoffs, and that would be wonderful.
I hope so. They're a really great team. We unfortunately lost 2 years ago when we played them, as a freshman. So we want to have another rematch, and they're a really great team. And we have really top teams in the division in this region, and we always just want to work hard and play hard on the field, and we have a really great team.
That is super.
that's wonderful, James. We're so impressed with you. We thank you for joining us. Hopefully, you've given light to my generation, to where we can have hope for the future. And I know that you and your fellow students and Hopstone Capital are doing that kind of work.
Well, people like
We-
James Yoon, let me just interrupt real quick, give me such wonderful, peaceful hope for this country's future. We are going to do just fine
yeah.
I appreciate it.
because
I
of
appreciate the
people
kind
like
work.
James.
Thank you.
Well, James, by the clock on the wall, I can see that it's time for our show to come to an end. We invite you to come back again. We'll have you back on maybe during the Hop Start program and get your thoughts on what's going on. But as for now, I'm afraid to say it's time to say goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick.
Goodbye, Patrick, and thank you for joining us today, James.
Thank you.